You know that moment when someone goes, "So, how was your weekend?" And for half a second you'd rather fake your own death than answer.
Yeah.
And if your whole body tightens the second someone says, "Crazy weather we're having," you need to hear this. That's not automatically social anxiety. And it's not just being introverted. Sometimes it's something else entirely. Because there are people walking around right now who would genuinely prefer awkward silence over one more conversation about traffic. And the reason why says something most of us are scared to admit about ourselves. So let's break it down, because there are 3 very different reasons people hate small talk. And if you've ever wondered, what is wrong with me? You're probably going to recognize yourself in one of these. Type 1. Their brain craves depth the way other people crave sugar. Neuroscientists and personality researchers talk about something called a high need for cognition, which is just a fancy way of saying their mind is hungry, not for food, for meaning, for substance, for ideas that actually have weight. So when you ask them, "How was your weekend?" their brain doesn't receive it like a question. It receives it like static, like elevator music in conversation form. Not because they're rude, because there's nothing to do with it. And here's the key. For a lot of people, small talk comes with a tiny reward. A little social dopamine hit. Cool, we're connected. This is safe, we're good. But for someone who craves depth, that reward can be basically non-existent. It feels like you're handing them an empty plate and expecting them to react like it's a meal. But watch what happens when you ask them something real. Not even deep in a dramatic way. Just real. What's been on your mind lately? What's something you're trying to figure out about your life? What are you honestly stressed about right now? Suddenly they come alive. Their eyes change. They lean in. They're there. They're not antisocial. They're not cold. They're just allergic to conversations that don't go anywhere. And honestly, they'd rather sit in clean silence than pretend your commute story is fascinating for the 15th time this month. Now type 2. Completely different. For them, small talk isn't shallow. It's a performance. And they are exhausted. Because what looks like a normal, easy conversation on the outside is chaos in their head. Am I smiling enough? Was that a weird laugh? Did I respond too fast? Too slow? Should I ask a follow-up, or is that annoying? Did they just react like they didn't like me? Psychologists call this cognitive load, basically how much mental bandwidth a task takes. While you're casually chatting, they're running 10 background programs at once. Tracking tone, timing, facial expressions, what you might mean, what they should say. And then judging themselves in real time like they're watching a replay. And here's the brutal part. Because they're managing all that, they can't actually be present. They can't enjoy the conversation. It starts to feel fake. Not because you're fake, but because they're not experiencing the moment directly. It's like they're watching themselves from outside their own body. And the person talking isn't even them. It's a character. A version of them designed to be acceptable. So over time, their brain links small talk with stress. With mental gymnastics. With that "I'm being evaluated" feeling. And they stop, not because they hate people, not because they think they're better than everyone, but because the cost of participating is too high. A 2-minute conversation drains them like a marathon. And nobody even notices. Now, type 3. And this one hits different. These people have realized something most of us don't like to look at. Small talk can become a trap. Think about it. Someone says, "How are you?" You say, "Good, busy, can't complain." Even if you're barely holding it together. Even if you cried in your car that morning. Even if you're one bad day away from a breakdown. You say you're fine. Because that's the script. "How was your weekend?" "Pretty chill. Just caught up on stuff." "You?" It's safe. It's polite. Keeps everything smooth. But it also keeps you on the surface forever. We've been trained since we were kids to follow these scripts. To not make anyone uncomfortable. To keep things pleasant. To be normal. And sure, it helps strangers coexist. But for people who value authenticity, that constant scripting doesn't just feel boring. It feels like a tiny, constant kind of lying. Not evil lying. Just abandoning yourself in small ways. Psychologists talk about authenticity as the need to live in alignment with your real self, your real thoughts, emotions, and values. And for these people, small talk doesn't feel like social lubricant. Feels like wearing a mask you didn't choose. It's like your real life is happening under the surface, and you're forced to narrate a fake version of it so nobody gets uncomfortable. And once you see that, it's hard to unsee it. Now here's something almost nobody says out loud. A lot of people who hate small talk share one trait that separates them from most people. They're comfortable with silence. Not just tolerant. Comfortable. Most people panic the second a conversation stops. You can literally see it, that scramble in their eyes for anything to fill the space. Weather, traffic, a random observation, anything to avoid the quiet. But these people, silence doesn't scare them, because somewhere along the way they learned something rare. Silence is often more honest than small talk. Silence says, I don't need to perform for you. I don't need to entertain you. I can just exist here with you. And most humans can't handle even 30 seconds of that without their anxiety spiking like danger is coming. Now, let's talk about the stereotype because it's real. People assume if you hate small talk, you think you're too smart, too deep, too intellectual. Like you're judging everyone for not discussing Nietzsche in the grocery store. And sure, some people are arrogant about it. But most people, it's not arrogance. It's vulnerability. Because small talk is safe. Nobody gets hurt talking about the weather. Nobody risks anything. But real conversation, that's dangerous. You reveal yourself. You show your actual thoughts, your actual feelings, and then you risk being misunderstood, judged, rejected, dismissed, laughed at, ignored. So when someone skips the script and goes straight to depth, they're not necessarily being superior. They're being brave. They're basically saying, I'd rather be real and risk rejection than stay polite and never be known. And that takes more guts than people give credit for. And here's the kicker. Hating small talk doesn't mean hating people. In fact, a lot of research and real-life patterns point to this. People who can't stand small talk often have fewer friends. But the friendships they do have are deeper, more meaningful, more real. They'd rather have 2 people who actually know them than 20 people who only know their weekend plans. Because for them, small talk doesn't build connection. It delays it. Every minute spent on the surface is a minute you're not going deeper. Every conversation about nothing is a missed chance to talk about something that actually matters. So what does all of this mean? If you hate small talk, you're not broken. You're not rude. You're not a bad person. Your brain might crave meaning. Or you might be exhausted from performing. Or you might have seen through the script and you can't pretend it's connection anymore. You're not cold. You're just done confusing shallow conversation with closeness. And if you meet someone who seems uncomfortable during casual chat, maybe don't assume they're standoffish. Maybe don't label them rude or stuck up. Maybe they're just waiting for something real. Maybe they're hoping you'll drop the script and talk to them like an actual human being, not a stranger you're obligated to entertain. So the real question is, which one are you? Are you the person who needs depth to feel alive? The person who's tired of performing? Or the person who saw the trap and can't play along anymore? And once you know the answer, can you handle what it says about you? If this made you feel a little less alone, or made you see social interaction in a totally different way, you might like what we do here. Subscribe and I'll see you in the next one.